Hello, everyone, and welcome to our short recap episode of the semifinals that delivered at the Australian Open. When we thought all was lost, the boys came through. We're going to talk all about it, also checking on the doubles and the wheelchair events. And yeah, it was a great day or night, really, of tennis. Nick, how much of it did you watch overnight?
Gosh, okay, so I have a crazy story about how I watched the semi-finals for the men. So the women was pretty simple, both matches were on my time. I could catch both of them. The men's, so if you don't know by now, both men's matches were incredibly long. And I woke up and I went, right, let me spoiler free catch up on Alcaraz Zverev. And I clicked on the replay because for some reason a replay had already appeared of Alcaraz Zverev on my Discovery Plus app.
Mm-hmm.
I then watched it, went, gosh, this is 4 and a bit hours long. I am not going to have time to watch all this before work. I will just kind of skip through because one of the cool things Discovery Plus is it lets you skip to hot shots and they'll highlight points where there was like a cool rally or
Oh, cool.
like when the break points get converted or when set points are converted, things like that. Like, okay, cool. And I get to the end of the fourth set tiebreak. I'm like, there's 25 minutes left of this. Does Alcaraz retire or something like that? Like, what's going on? And then I just happened to check. I'm just going to see. I think I just happened to check something else, and I realized this match is still happening. This match is
Oh,
still
so you
happening.
were
I was spent the entirety of the fourth to the fifth set catching up on this match. So I stopped, turned it on live in time for the end of the fifth set.
That's hilarious. But how did they already have
A
a
replay.
replay
I don't
of
know. I
a
think it
match
obviously.
that was happening?
I guess it was glitched or something, but like something in the
That's
programming. So
interesting.
I spent an hour or so, or like half an hour, just going through the highlights and went, hang on a sec, Zverev is a breakup on Alcaraz in the fifth. I need to watch this.
Yeah, because, I'm thinking maybe was it like it was a long match, so they were like, here's half of it first and then continue later.
The
But
only
also,
thing
that doesn't really quite make sense.
I could think of is it was a day session match, and the Djokovic Sinner match was a night session match, and so they've just put it crossed over from day to night because of timing, and so it put a replay on. So I think the replay actually goes to about
That
after Zverev breaks.
Yeah, that actually kind of makes sense because with those programmings and things, a lot of this stuff is actually automated. So
Yeah.
it probably just got to the time of when the night session was supposed to start and it was like, oh, the day session must be done.
Because the other thing is,
It
when I
wasn't.
open the app, the first thing that comes up in front of me is Djokovic versus Sinner build up, not live Alcaraz versus Zverev.
Well,
So
there
I
you
have no idea
go.
what's still going.
That is definitely a note for whoever's building that app because if the match is still going, that should be the first thing you see when you open up the app. That is so, so fascinating. We will get into all of our reviews of the semifinals and we will look ahead to the finals. But first, this is your last chance to order a sweatsuit. Thanks for everybody who has put in an order already. It's been really nice to see your orders come in. But the sweatsuits are leaving the store at midnight, February 1st. So you basically have today and tomorrow in order to order a sweatsuit. Really hope you pick one up. They will be gone for the season and TBD on when and if they will be back. Okay, let's get into it. I want to start with the women because I think we can run through the semifinals of the Australian Open on the women's side pretty quickly because coming into it, it was going to be Arina Sabalenka versus Alina Svitolina and Elena Rybakina versus Jessica Pegula. And I was hopeful. I thought, you know what? The Australian Open thus far has been mostly straight sets, not really exciting, but these matchups seem super fun. So I'm like, oh, we're going to get some three-set battles. And yes, we did not. We did not get any three-set battles on the women's side. In the case of Arina Sabalenka and Alina Svitolina, that was a straight set routing. Like I think it 2-2? I think 6-2,
Yeah,
6-2, if I remember correctly. Yes. And that was surprising. Alina Svitolina had been playing so well coming into it, but I guess it's just one of those things where Sabalenka's just on another level right now.
She is. I mean, she's kind of proved at this tournament, like, she's fended off some pretty good players or some pretty promising players. She's had some battles with Alina Svitolina before. By the way, who would have thought that Arena, Alina, and Elena would be really similar names? So, yeah, Sabalenka just locked in. And here's the thing I think turned that match into a routing was that hindrance call that happened in the first set. Because most players would probably have lost their minds a little bit or lost their focus. Arena immediately on the next point just doubled down and went more aggressive, gave the umpire a glare, and then just decided that she was just done with the day and she was going to destroy Svitolina and just locked in. That is champions mentality right there. This is what we know. She loves Australia. We know she's tough to beat on these courts, and the field's been finding that. So, yeah, absolutely no surprise Arena Sabalenka was in the final. That was the easiest prediction that anyone could have ever made.
Yes. And if people don't know what we're talking about during, I believe it was actually almost like the third game of the match. It was very, very early on in the match. Arena Sabalenka got called for hindrance on a grunt that she made. And it's a very interesting situation, especially with Arena Sabalenka, something that I actually do want to talk about because we get it. I've seen it a lot online. In fact, we've had messages sent to us before in comments, which I typically 100% just ignore. But people complaining about Arena Sabalenka's grunt. And my whole theory on it, I think I've done a rant on this already on this podcast, but my whole thing about it is she's always done it. She's never changed. This is just how loud she is, and get over it. Like, I'm so sorry. There have been other loud players in the world, who grunt really loud on the men's side as well. But for some reason, Arena Sabalenka is the one who gets it the most. And basically what happened, she mishit a ball and she does this thing. And I've seen her do it in numerous matches before, but if she'll mishit a ball or it's almost like she's speaking through her grunts in a way where she hit the ball and it kind of surprised her. And she kind of goes oh my God, what was that? But in a grunt kind of way. So it is like an extra sound. And this time the umpire decided to choose violence and give her a hindrance call. And what was actually really surprising, everyone should just go back and watch it. What was really surprising was looking across the net to Alina Svitolina, and she was shocked. She was like, wait, what? What's going on? Because again, this is nothing new. And that's always been my sort of counter to people where, they're like, it's hindrance or she's doing it on purpose to distract the opponent. And I'm just like, it's one thing if it's a surprise and it happens once every blue moon. She literally does it every single point, every game, every set. It just happens constantly, so much so that I don't even hear it anymore when I watch her matches. It's part of the atmosphere, like she likes to say. So yeah, this was a very interesting call, but again, I loved her response. I was living. I was because you could tell she was pissed, and you could tell she was like, oh, really? She was like, oh, really? Got it. I'm going to win this match now, and I'm going to win it really, really well. So that was a very interesting choice. And I love what she said in press as well, when she sort of was she got asked the question, what did you think of it? And she said, hey, to the umpire, give me another hindrance call because it really did help my game. So yeah, Arena Sabalenka is into the finals. It's her, correct me if I'm wrong now, is this her fourth final? Yes.
In Australia, yes. Fourth in a row.
It's her fourth. Yeah, it's her fourth final in a row in Australia. And it's her sixth on hard court in a row? I believe so. Yes, it's her sixth hard court in a row. We've got all the Australians, and then she got to 2020.
Seventh. She's gone to 3 US Opens in a row.
Oh, that's true. She has got to 3 US Opens in a row. Yes. So this is her seventh. She's the hard court queen. Is that what we're calling her now? Hard court queen.
Yep.
She loves a hard court, especially at a Grand Slam, and she just likes to win them. So let's see. But her opponent in the final is going to be Elena Rybakina, who defeated Jessica Pegula. Now, this became a match for a bit. I think in the first set, Rybakina just came out and sort of was like, I'm getting to this finals no matter what. And then Jessica kind of started to figure it out a bit, right, Nick, in the second set there.
Yeah, I think Pegula just let loose because there was nothing else left. Like, for a set and pretty much two sets, 6-3, 5-3, Rybakina was dominating. Rybakina was crushing it. She was playing as a good a tennis I've ever seen Elena Rybakina play. And I was like, okay, this might be pretty straightforward. Like, Pegula didn't really have an answer. She was trying her best, but there were some things that weren't quite working. And she was getting frustrated. And Rybakina was just swatting away balls like nobody's business. And then you get to sort of 5-3, Pegula serving, and Pegula saves 3 match points. Rybakina makes a couple of mistakes. And then it's just Boynton starts absolutely crunching returns and decides the only way to keep this match going is to go for broke. And she does. And yeah, makes it a match for a few games. And then it kind of all reset in that second set tiebreak of Rybakina going, oh, yeah, I'm done playing now, and just starts swatting balls away again and takes it back over. Like, it could have gone 3. We were pretty close to it. But Rybakina eventually gets the job done on her serve, which is no surprise, really. Once she got it on her serve, she got it done. And yeah, I'm very excited for this final because we talk about how good Aryna Sabalenka is in Australia. And not just Australia, like Australian Open, like the country of Australia. Like, since 2023, she has lost 2 matches in Australia. One to Madison Keys and one to Elena Rybakina, who played amazing tennis in that final, which was the 2024 Brisbane final. Mm-hmm. Just like outplayed Aryna. And I think Elena Rybakina is the one player who can challenge Aryna Sabalenka really without playing extra special. And we saw that in 2023 Australian Open final, which is the exact same lineup, Rybakina against Sabalenka. And that ended up being... There's actually quite a lot of parallels with that tournament. This was before Aryna Sabalenka was a Grand Slam champion, and this was before we realised that Elena Rybakina hadn't fluked to Wimbledon. So, and that 2023 Australian Open was very similar to this one in the women's section. It was mostly pretty dud matches. It was mostly straight sets. It wasn't anything... When I go back and look over that draw, there's no match that really stands out in my memory. And then that final ended up being incredible and one of, if not the best match that whole year. When Rybakina and Sabalenka play each other, you can count on there being fireworks if they're both switched on. But I'm really, really looking forward to it. Like, think about the Berlin quarterfinal they just had last year, where like that was just a crazy final set tiebreak to decide. So I think that these two have a track record of bucking the trend of boring Australian Opens, and they're going to make this final very, very interesting and make up for the entire rest of the tournament. And I think we should settle in for some fantastic tennis.
Yes, should be an exciting final. I am looking forward to it. They've met so many times and have produced some really, really great matches. Now on to the men. Now, again, the lineup looked great. It was, Carlos Alcaraz versus Zverev and Jannik Sinner versus Novak Djokovic. And I thought, potential for really fun, great matches. And I actually started the Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner match. I was super excited to see what this would bring. And then Carlos won the first 2 sets. Zverev couldn't take his chances. And I just thought, I guess we're getting a repeat of the women's semifinals. I will be going to bed. So I went to bed when Carlos was 2 sets to love up. I was like, calling it a night. I'm tired as it is. Went to sleep. Woke up, and the 5th set was just ending. And I thought, classic. You go to sleep thinking this player is 2 sets to love up, and then you wake up and it's an epic 5-setter or crazy 5-setter. You've told us what, you went through trying to catch up with the match, but this was so crazy. I didn't actually catch up with what happened in the match until after the Novak Djokovic and Sinner match because I decided to just watch that one live. And then I went back to catch up on the last 3 sets of Alcaraz and Zverev, but caught up on it. And boy, oh boy, I just didn't think cramping was going to be a theme of this match based on the first set and just based on Carlos Alcaraz's current kind of like history. It seems like he'd kind of gotten the cramping out of the way, but he did sort of cramp in this match. I listened to his press conference, both the English and the Spanish, and I wanted to like sort of clarify a few things for people who, because I've seen so much online. I've seen, medical timeouts are not allowed during cramping, but I'm just going to describe the whole timeline. So basically what happens is Carlos in the third set calls for, at one of the changeovers, he calls for the physio, and it seems like they're massaging his leg. And in the background of all of that, you see Alexander Zverev losing his mind because for him, he says, Alcaraz is cramping. You cannot call a physio for cramping and then have a medical timeout, which is correct. You can't do that. But when Carlos came into press, he said he didn't think he was cramping. He says he thought he had in some way strained his abductor muscle, and that is why he called for the physio. He then told the physio what pain he was feeling, and the physio decided to have a medical timeout to deal with it. So there was like massaging of the leg and things like that. He then said, though, that based off of him not knowing what was happening to his leg and then the medical timeout, he then started cramping. So he did cramp during this match. And at the sit down, which we saw this during Jannik Sinner, which this is allowed, if you are cramping during the changeovers, you are allowed to have the physio massage whatever is cramping. You just can't call a medical timeout, but you can use your changeover time to get some massage and stuff. And so that is what he did there. In all of this as well, Carlos Alcaraz also threw up. So, I mean, a lot was going on there, Nick, in the like third and fourth set.
Oh, I didn't see the throwing up.
Oh, he did.
I didn't. I skipped that. So, yeah, I think it was interesting. What was even crazier was that sit down where Alcaraz gets treatment for when he strained his abductor muscle, which, when you're watching it, he's stretching it like he's pulled something. It doesn't look to me like a kind of cramp stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it looks like he's just trying to keep himself warmed up or kind of keep himself loose. That changeover was 5-4, third set. Alcaraz was one game away from the match. Like, he was that close to it. And, yeah, like, Alcaraz's body goes for a set, and he can't keep up, and Zverev takes full advantage. Still can't break Alcaraz, but he can.
Yeah, that was the weird thing.
Yeah.
It was still 2 tie-break sets.
It was so close. Like, it was just made it close. And then Zverev didn't break until the start of the fifth, at which point Alcaraz decided he was feeling better. So, and then basically had break points in every Zverev game for the rest of the match until he broke back and got the job done. To be honest, that whole match was pretty much defined by Carlos Alcaraz's physical condition, because that would have not have gone 5. It might have gone 4, but it would not have gone 5 without Alcaraz dropping off a cliff and then making that. But, that fifth set, boy, oh boy, he made that fifth set. That fifth set was epic. And that's probably the match I'm most impressed with Carlos's fight and mentality that I've ever seen. Apart from the Roland Garros final, but like, this is pretty close in my mind.
Yeah, no, it's just been a completely impressive match from him because, he's going for such a great record here at the Australian Open. Before this tournament, he'd never got past the quarterfinals. Zverev has beaten him here before at the Australian Open. So there was so much happening, and you're right to point to his sort of like mentality, and to his words, he said his belief throughout the match, and that's kind of what got him over the line. So that was great. And I can imagine people who actually stayed up to watch all of that thinking, okay, great, now I'm just going to go watch Sinner Djokovic, and maybe it's going to be, 3 sets or whatever. But I don't think anyone really was going into that thinking that Djokovic had a chance. I know there was sort of like the talk of, he's had some time off, he's well rested, like this is his best chance ever to beat Sinner. But I've said this before in this podcast, and I definitely have to call myself out here. But I said a while ago that Novak was just never beating Sinner again, because you're playing the younger version of yourself. Like, how are you going to beat the younger version of yourself? Well, Novak today said, hold my racket. And I'm going to show you exactly how I'm going to do it. And it was pretty much crazy. I looked at the stats, and Jannik Sinner won every single stat. He had more aces. He had more points. He had like every stat there possibly was. He won it. And yet he lost the match. And guys, friends, that's tennis. Like that's just what it is.
Like they actually said in the commentary on the British feed that this is like potentially Jannik Sinner's best ever serving stats, or like through a whole match at one point. Like he was getting his first serve in, he was winning points, and it was just crazy watching this going, Sinner should be winning this match. How on earth is Novak Djokovic in this position? Because he nearly went full love up at the start of the match. He nearly ran away with the first set. And then, Djokovic looked like he gave his all to win the second set. And then it was basically Djokovic trying to keep up with Sinner for the third until eventually he faded a bit. And then it just got weird. They just started playing as good as each other. And Djokovic was just fending Sinner off on his service game if he wasn't having a clean set, when they weren't clean service games, which he was getting every now and again. And then Sinner isn't perfect, like neither's Alcaraz, but Sinner isn't perfect either, and he would have the service game drops, and Djokovic would take full advantage. And so we were sitting here going, Sinner's playing incredibly well, but it did feel like he was trying to beat Djokovic, as you said, because he's the younger version of him, and he just went, I'm younger, I'm stronger, I do this better than you, I will eventually win this match. And then it only got to like the end of it, like when he got broken in the fifth set, and then it kind of dawned on him that actually he might not. And he really went for it, tried to break Novak straight back, nearly did. Djokovic said, no, you're not. And let's give Djokovic full credit here. I think he just decided to go for broke. He decided to just completely rip through the ball, hit it as big as he could, because that was the only way he was going to beat Sinner. And probably Alcaraz as well, when he gets to the final, because he can't grind with these guys in the way that he can with the rest of the tour, because they'll just hit through him. And so now he's, okay, I've got to hit through you. Save some energy, hit through you. And that fifth set was almost like, I'm watching... Did Djokovic just get 5 years younger? Like 10 years younger, like one in like the last couple of hours. And I'm like, this is vintage Novak Djokovic tussling, like battling with a guy who's pretty good. I don't know if Jannik Sinner knows what just hit him, but...
Yeah. Yeah, no. I don't think he does, because you kind of did put it well there. I mean, he had, I think the stat was, and I don't want to quote this wrong, but I think what it was is that of the 19 breakpoint chances,
it was 19 break points. Good grief! I knew it was 18 at one point. Like it was insanely high. The breakpoint chances count for Sinner. Again, one of those stats that you would expect him to break through and take full advantage of. Like, this is very unusual for a player of Jannik Sinner's caliber to not do it. And we've seen this happen to Novak Djokovic before. We've seen it happen to a couple of other top players in the past. But it literally came down to, this match literally came down to Novak Djokovic took his chances and Jannik Sinner didn't.
Yeah, he just didn't. He wasn't able to convert those breakpoints. There were so many of them. Like every single time I kept turning away, I was like, oh, there's another breakpoint. He doesn't convert it. So there are so many of those. And now we have a pretty historic final. We've got Carlos Alcaraz versus Novak Djokovic. It's not the final that I thought we were going to have, but it's better in the historic nature of it, because Carlos Alcaraz is going for the career slam. He would be the youngest ever player to do it. And Novak Djokovic is going for the 25th Grand Slam, and that would make him the owner of the most Grand Slams ever. So the men's final at the Australian Open just became a bigger deal than what I think a lot of people thought, where it was just sort of, another Sinker-ass final where, for Sinner just be like, oh, it's my third Australian Open. I feel like this final is actually a bit more fun.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to how well both guys recover from their kind of physical matches, because Alcaraz is younger, you would expect him to, but if there genuinely is an injury, we don't know. And how will Djokovic's 38-year-old body recover from a late finish after going 5 sets with Jannik Sinner and kind of really pushing himself to do it? There's a lot of history on the line. Carlos Alcaraz would also be the youngest male player ever to get to 7 Grand Slams. Like, he would kind of be trending ahead of other people in kind of the multi-slam winners category. And obviously Djokovic is going for history, because I don't think anyone his age has even got that close. Well, it has ever won a major in the professional era. So there's so much to prove from both players, and that makes it really, really interesting. I think what also makes this interesting is how this sets up for the rest of the year, because we've talked about this on this podcast before about what's the field going to do to beat Sinker-ass? Like, what are they actually, like, when's this going to happen? And what do we get? We get the guy who's been around for literally decades at this point and is one of the greatest players of all time, who's still got it in him to challenge, actually beats Jannik Sinner. And Alexander Zverev comes incredibly close to also doing it. Like, we were this close to a Djokovic-Zverev final, which would have been completely different. So the question is, like, does the field see this and take some kind of hope that these guys are human, that there are weaknesses that can be exploited, or even just these guys are going to run into physical problems at some point and we need to make sure we're there to take advantage? Or is it just going to point out that you need these guys to have an off day, physically, mentally, whatever, to beat them? Or do you just have to be of a certain generation to beat them, and that generation might end up being the next one?
Yeah, I don't know. For me, this actually hasn't changed anything really for me, because we're already at the point where, it was the top 4 seeds in the semifinals and no one from quote unquote the field made it. Zverev has been here before. Like, he actually does find himself at the end of these tournaments more often than not facing against Carlos and Jannik, where a lot of the field don't even get here. With Novak, he has beaten them both before now, so it's like nothing new. If the field was going to learn anything from Novak, you would have hoped they would have done it like seasons before now. And with, if anything, I feel like almost you learn more maybe about Jannik from this match, because he really did have so many chances. He wasn't physically hurt. He wasn't kind of like suffering in any way. So he just truly lost this match. So maybe that's what people can take from that. With Alcaraz, you're sort of like, well, if he didn't have the physical issue, this would have been a 3-set straight, could have been another straight set match, but he had this physical thing in the middle of it. So yeah, it's I don't know. I actually am not sort of making any sort of predictions on the field based off of these semis now. Probably maybe later in the season, we will see if any of them step up to the plate. We will see. Let's touch on the doubles and the wheelchair event super quickly. The doubles finals have been set on the men and women's side, and they will be before the singles finals matches on both days. So Saturday, tomorrow, and then Sunday. And what I love that the Australian Open is doing, which is I've kind of been calling for this forever. And the fact that the Australian Open can do it, it means it can be done. But basically, if you have a grounds pass, because even up until finals day, you can get a ground pass to just hang out on the grounds of the Australian Open. But if you have a ground pass on finals day, they will let you into Rod Laver Arena to watch the doubles finals. Because usually it doesn't get packed during the doubles finals, and then people file in for the singles finals. So what are we doing with all that empty space? You might as well let ground pass holders in to kind of fill it up and give it atmosphere. And then you have a changeover time in between the doubles finals and the singles finals, where you can sort of like switch out the crowd, and then only ticket holders for the singles can come in. So I just thought it was genius, and I don't know why more Grand Slams don't do that, because it's kind of just the same every time you watch the doubles, and there are just too many empty seats when there are people on the grounds who would happily take those seats to watch the tennis.
I think it's a great idea. I think it gives people a chance to experience being on a stadium on a budget and see some great tennis.
Yeah.
Quick thing, Anastasia, both finals are tomorrow.
Both the women's and men's final
Yes.
are tomorrow?
Yes. So the
So
women's
only the men's final is on Sunday?
looks like it, yeah. So
Oh, wow. All right.
So yeah. So the women's doubles final is at 1 a.m. GMT, which is 8 p.m. for you. And then it's not before 3:30 a.m. GMT, which is 10:30 p.m. for you for the men's doubles final.
Yeah, kind of crazy that actually today, as we record, is when the women's final happens, and we're here. We're already at the end of the Australian Open. For the women, we have Elise Mertens and her partner Zhang Shuwei. I really apologize if I'm saying that wrong. I will put the names on the screen as well. Then on their opposite sides, you have Anna Delinina and also Alexander Krunik. Yeah, so that is the women's doubles. Elise Mertens and Zhang are sort of veteran doubles players, so they are kind of the ones I will be looking for to see if they can get through and win the Australian Open. On the men's side, you have the Australian wildcards who have made it to the finals. You have Jason Kubler and Mark Pullman. I'm sure everyone will be rooting for them. And that is where you should have that atmosphere. So the fact that ground pass holders can get into that stadium is so, so good. And then, of course, you have Chris Harrison and Neil Skupski, who I did not realize this, but it is worth saying. Neil Skupski has gotten to so many finals of Grand Slams. Last year, he got to, I think it was Roland Garros and the US Open, and he just hasn't been able to cross the line and actually win a Grand Slam. So I'm sure Neil Skupski will be very motivated to get it across the line. He's just going to have a big, big challenge with the Australian crowd, I am sure.
It's like an annual tradition where you get an Australian wildcard team making the final or even winning the thing, like how Heliavari and Patton won it last year. I don't know.
Yeah. For the wheelchair event, we have Takeda Oda, who is becoming quite the dominant force in men's wheelchair tennis. And if you do not follow this man on social media, he's a very good follow. Takeda Oda is cool. He is from Tokyo, and he's just like, I found him on Instagram the other day, and I thought, wow, this kid is like super cool. And I think he is kind of 20, if he's not like 19 or 20, so he's pretty young, but he's super cool to follow. He's been winning all these tournaments. He's usually battling it out with Alfie Hewitt, but Alfie did not make it to the final this year. Instead, we have Spaniard Martin de la Puente. He made it to the final, so he's going to be taking on Takeda Oda in the men's wheelchair singles. And in the women's wheelchair singles, Dida de Root is back. She's back. She was out of it. I think we talked about this last year where I kept saying, where's Dida de Root and why is she not winning all the Grand Slams? Because that's just her MO. But she's back from injury. She took pretty much the whole year off last year, and she's in the finals now. Her opponent is Li from China. Again, I will put the names up on the screen. Apologies because I'm really bad at pronouncing Chinese names. And unfortunately, maybe someone who's listening to this from the WTA, maybe, hopefully, but the wheelchair players' names are not on the website, so you can learn how to pronounce their names. Maybe we work on that. Maybe we do that for the wheelchair players. That would be awesome. Next. Okay, so that's pretty much it. We have covered the semifinals, looked ahead to the finals, really, really excited about those matches. Really quickly, there's some other tournaments we are following as well. Colton Smith is into the quarterfinals of the San Diego Challenger. That has been happening at a time that I can watch because it's in California and the timing is reasonable. So I've been following along with that tournament. Sebi Korda is also in the quarterfinals of that event. So that is fun. And the Philippines Open, it is in the final round. So the finals is going to be between Donna Vekić and off-season athlete Camila Osorio. Camila Osorio defeated Alex Ayala last night and she made it to the finals. So super excited to see if she can get over the line and win the tournament, which is the first of its kind in the Philippines. I have so enjoyed following our friend on X, Island Tennis Girl, because she's at the tournament and she's in the press room. And the excitement that those fans have for this event is unmatched. And, I think a lot of people might think, well, they're just fans of Alex Ayala. So, that's kind of why they're all there. But no, they have adopted all of these players as their own. I was seeing a lot of social media chatter of them all giving sort of like Filipino nicknames to all the other players as well. Camila Osorio in press last night was wearing a soccer jersey of the Filipino women's soccer team. And she said someone from, had given it to her as a gift. So she decided to wear it. Like they are really embracing these WTA players. And this is what we want. We want more tournaments like this in more places that actually kind of want the tennis and enjoy the tennis. And, I firmly believe, I think this tournament will very quickly become way more than a 1-2-5 because they have really exceeded expectations in all ways.
I'd love to see it. I think there's probably space on the calendar the week after the Australian Open. Go for it.
Yeah, totally. Finally, off-season episode 2 is coming out this Sunday. Woo! It's coming out this Sunday. It'll premiere live. So again, I will be in the live chat Sunday at 4 p.m. Eastern to watch it along with you. The trailer for episode 2 is coming out today. So by the time you're listening to this, it will be out on all of our social media channels and YouTube as well. Also, if you want to just watch all things off season and just focus on that, we now have a YouTube channel just for off season. So a lot of, clips and things will drop on that YouTube channel. And finally, what's next from us? We'll be back. We'll be back for a review of the Australian Open. That will happen on Monday. So we'll record it on Sunday. It'll be out for you regular scheduled programming on Monday, and history would have been made no matter what. No matter what happens, some sort of history will have been made by the end of this tournament, and I'm excited to see what that is. Nick, another one's in the can. We did it.
We're there. The end of the Australian Open is so close.
Yes,
we're looking forward to some great
is.
tennis and a restored sleep schedule.
A restored sleep schedule, please. Bye, guys.
Bye.